stuck? Is something holding you back? Are there obstacles in your way? Well, let's smash through those obstacles so that you can live your best life. Hi, I'm Matt Brooks, founder of Matt Brooks Coaching, and I'm fascinated with how people overcome barriers and achieve success. Join me for insights, strategies, and inspiring stories as we explore practical tips and powerful tools to unlock your full potential. This is the Barrier Busting Podcast. Well, welcome back to the Barrier Busting Podcast. I'm Matt Brooks, and I am happy today because we're doing the third installment of my series on habits, which I think are such a powerful force in our lives that we can't deny them, and we need to grapple with them. So if you've been listening, the first episode I did, we talked about the habit loop, or how habits are ingrained in your mind, how your brain records them and then makes them automatic so that it's just automated so that you don't think about it. And the whole purpose of that is to free some brain space for other things, right? Our brains want to do that because our brains don't want to become overloaded. That was the first episode. The second episode, we talked about building new habits, and there were a lot of really good ideas in that. So if you haven't listened, I do recommend that one in particular. Today, we're going to grapple with bad habits, right? I mean, bad habits, right? We've all got them. But here's the thing. Why are they so hard to break, right? And how do we break them, you know? I mean, as I said, we've all got them, some more than others. But why? Why, when we know it's bad, do we still do it? Have you ever asked that question? And besides, what's so bad about them anyways, right? All right. Well, we all know that bad habits are behavior patterns perceived as negative, and that ultimately have a negative effect on you in terms of your health, your social status, your finances, etc. There are as many bad habits as there are people, from smoking to overeating to nail biting to gossiping and many, many more. Why we have them is different for everyone. But more often than not, bad habits result from stress, your emotional state, boredom, or anxiety. What's most important to accept is that even with what may seem like a tiny or insignificant bad habit, over time it can have enormous impacts on our health, our productivity, our financial security, and our happiness, just to name a few. It's also important to remember something I said in a prior show, that the brain does not discriminate between good and bad habits. It just records all habits. We have to choose to fight a bad habit. The habit loop in the brain will not help us. In fact, even if we overcome bad habits, they remain in our brain forever. I'm sorry to tell you that, but it's true. So changing a bad habit is a constant struggle, and it requires that you deliberately fight it. Because if you aren't deliberate, your brain will kick into automation mode, and the bad habit will reappear without thought. Now, at this point, I want to say something really important, so please listen up. As if you have any other choice when you're listening to a podcast, right? But seriously, this is important. Contrary to popular belief, bad habits are not a sign of weakness. You know, we think that in our society, somebody overeats, somebody's overweight, it's because they're weak, they lack discipline. No, nonsense. Those who are overweight or smokers or people who possess any bad habit that is shunned in society. They've been shamed and told they're bad people who lack self-control, but that's bullshit. I'm serious. It's bullshit. Reasons for bad habits are complicated, and they're unique for each individual. And guess what? Even highly disciplined people have bad habits. It's not a sign of weakness. Now, this goes against our cultural beliefs that unhealthy behaviors are a sign of moral or behavioral weakness. However, shaming people with bad habits can often backfire. In fact, shame, frankly, in any situation, rarely works. We think it does, but it really doesn't. Shame is something people try to numb, and we often numb shame with our bad habits. So, shame someone who's overweight, according to James Clear in his book Atomic Habits, which, by the way, is a superb book. shame the people who are overweight, and they will often overeat to soothe their pain and humiliation. So please, as you listen to this podcast, remember to give yourself some grace. Bad habits do not necessarily mean weakness. And remember that we've all got bad habits. So back to the question of why. Why, if we know something is bad for us, do we let it become a habit? Now, briefly, I just want to say a little aside here. I am not an addiction counselor. So if you're out there struggling with an addiction, I hope this episode will help you a little bit, but it's not my wheelhouse. Please, I beg you, reach out to someone who is a professional. And there are many out there. There's so many resources now. A simple Google search will help you, but please reach out, because I'll bet there's at least one person in your life who needs you. So if you're struggling with addiction, we love you, we support you, and we want you to get the help you need. So we choose certain bad habits for the same reason we have any habits. They bring us immediate rewards. However, you don't need me to tell you that the long-term risks from bad habits far outweigh the immediate rewards. But our brains don't think that way. Our brains like immediate rewards. It's simply kicking the can down the road. Eventually, the consequences of our bad habits will play out. But in the present, the rewards are something we crave, and that's precisely why bad habits are so hard to break. You know, it's oh so wrong, but it feels oh so good. Because the very nature of habits is that they're automatic behaviors, habits emerge without our permission, and they have a tendency to grow over time. So that occasional stop on your way home from work for a candy bar easily over time can turn into stopping every day for more and more sugary treats, and then you put on more and more weight. The craving is gradual and insidious. The process of behavioral change starts with awareness. You've got to know, and you've got to be willing to admit it to yourself. You can be strong enough to do this. You can admit, at least to yourself, that you have some bad habits that will ultimately be important to change. And you can do this while still giving yourself some grace, knowing that none of us anywhere are anywhere near perfect. Remember also that, like I discussed in my last episode, there can be compound growth to habits. One good habit can spawn many other, and over time, an entire slew of good habits are permanently stored in your brain. Unfortunately, the same is true for bad habits. They compound over time. As James Clear states, when we repeat small errors, whether it be from poor decisions, little excuses, or tiny mistakes, our small choices compound into, and I quote, toxic results. It will take some grit and a lot of determination. I'm not going to lie. We can break our bad habits. Now, in my last episode, I discussed James Clear's 4 laws of behavioral change that are laid out in his book, Atomic Habits. Those 4 laws are: make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, make it satisfying. Now, for breaking bad habits, Clear suggests an inverted version of these laws. Instead of make it obvious, make it invisible. Instead of make it attractive, make it unattractive. Instead of make it easy, make it difficult. And instead of making it satisfying, make it unsatisfying. I'm going to explain all of that and offer some additional tips for breaking bad habits after a quick break.
Feeling overwhelmed? Struggling to find balance in your daily life? At Matt Brooks Coaching, we get it, and we can help. With over 25 years of nonprofit executive experience and an MSW with a clinical focus, Matt Brooks offers personalized coaching designed to help you rise above your challenges and live your best life. Whether you aim to advance your career, enhance your skills, or simply find more clarity and peace, Matt is here to be your partner and ally. Visit mattbrookscoaching.com to book your free discovery session today. Take the first step towards a brighter tomorrow.
All right. I was talking about 4 laws for breaking bad habits that come from James Clear's book, Atomic Habits, which, by the way, I've said it many times. I can't say it enough. Great book. Great book. A lot more information in there than what I'm giving in these podcasts, so do check it out. But those 4 laws, now inverted, for breaking the 4 laws that would be for breaking bad habits, that is make it invisible, make it unattractive, make it difficult, and make it unsatisfying. Okay? So let's start with make it invisible. One of the key points regarding making things obvious, which was part of the 4 rules of behavioral change, is making them visible. You may recall that cues come to us through our senses, and that our visual sense is by far the most powerful when it comes to cues. So for bad habits, instead of creating a cue that's easily seen, we need to, in essence, hide the cue. Reduce your exposure to the cue, whether that be by removing anything that can cue the behavior from your home or work environment, to staying away from environments that present cues, places or situations where the context itself is a cue. You see, when it comes to breaking bad behaviors, we first have to accept, and this is really important, everybody listen up, willpower is rarely enough to succeed. I'm going to say that again. Willpower is rarely enough to succeed when trying to break a bad habit. Society tells us that we are weak if we can't just change, right? Which infers that if we don't have the willpower alone, we are weak. That's a fallacy, because in a battle between ingrained and automatic behaviors, those that are ingrained and automatic in our brains, a battle between that and willpower alone, willpower is not going to win, or rarely will win. We need to fight this battle as a multi-front battle if we're going to win. So the first step is to do everything we can to hide the cues, wherever they may be. If you're a smoker, be sure to get rid of all matches and lighters and ashtrays, as well as making sure there are no cigarettes on hand. If you see that ashtray, chances are you'll be headed to that convenience store to pick up a pack of Marlboros in no time. Identify anything that can be a cue and either get rid of it or stay away from where it is. Out of sight, out of mind. Always remember that you can break a bad habit, but you can't make your brain forget it. Willpower and sheer grit are critical in this, but they aren't always enough. Create an environment that's as disciplined as you will need to be, and you'll have a better chance of success of breaking that bad habit. Okay, the second law, make it unattractive. First, try to tell yourself that you aren't the kind of person who has this particular bad habit. I am not a nail biter. I am not a smoker, etc. Say it often and say it like you mean it. We have to start changing the mindset somehow. So talk to yourself and do it often. Second, try to hang in social situations where the group finds your particular bad habit something that is unacceptable. Surrender to them and hang with people who not only don't participate in that habit, but look down at it. We all want to belong, right? We all crave acceptance, right? Social norms can be a powerful force. So let that be of help to you when trying to change a bad habit. The third law, make it difficult. This is exactly what it sounds like. Make it really hard to do the routine of the habit. Put things like cigarettes in hard-to-get places. Spending too much money eating out? Take your cash and credit cards out of your wallet and leave home without them. Mainly, what you got to do is use something called a commitment device. Commitment devices are decisions you make in the present that will bind decisions you make in the future. There's a lot of ways to make things difficult. Whatever you choose, just be sure to give yourself every chance for success. The last law, make it unsatisfying. Negative experiences are what destroy habits because our brains crave rewards, not disappointment. Remember that. Negative experiences destroy habits because we don't want that. We want a reward. So, make the consequences of doing the bad habit painful. And I don't mean like physical pain. That's not what I mean. I'm not saying to, beat yourself up with a baseball bat or something. No. By painful, I mean make the consequences hurt in some way. Make them hard consequences that you have to face, okay? Remember, we avoid pain, and fear of pain is a very good motivator. So here's an idea. Make a habit contract that you sign and give to people, like an accountability partner. And agree to fines of some sort if you slip back into your old habit. Fines can be financial or work you would have to do for that person. Fines could be anything, but it's got to be something that's going to be a real pain in the ass, or you're not going to do it, right? So, say you have a spending problem, right? And it's mostly due to ordering things online, buying things online, mainly on Amazon. Agree with an accountability partner on a weekly spending limit. At the end of each week, you have to send a screenshot of your Amazon order page to your accountability partner. If you went over your limit, you have to pay double that amount to your accountability partner or to a charity. That's going to hurt, right? Or perhaps if you have that cigarette, you will be required to mow your accountability partner's lawn for an entire month. Whatever it is, make the consequences hurt. Make them really suck. Breaking bad habits requires creating new ones, right? You will have the same cues, but change the craving, routine, and the reward. Embrace hard habits, because if in the long run they serve you and those around you better, then you're going to win. And don't think of them as punishment. Associate the outcomes with something positive. Make a new reward. Reframe in your mind your new habits to see them in a positive light. Don't focus on the drawbacks, but rather focus on the gains. Instead of saying, I'm a smoker, start saying, I'm an ex-smoker, and say it proudly. Change phrases like, I have to go to work, to, I get to, as in, I get to go to work, thus highlighting a positive. I know, it sounds corny. It does, and it probably is a little bit corny, but seriously, it will help. Now, you may think that the techniques I've mentioned are a little too Pollyannish, a little too easy to fail at. So here's one that I really like, and one that we can all do with no real pain involved. Forget goals, focus on systems. In my last episode, I discussed why we so often fail at New Year's resolutions, because our goals are often too big to be realistically achieved, right? Well, what if instead of thinking about goals, we focus on building systems or altering our existing systems to support those goals? Goals are the results of what you want to achieve, but systems are the processes that lead to the results. If you're a pianist, how often do you practice? How do you practice? As in, what's your practice routine? How do you attain feedback? As in, do you continue to train with a mentor? And how do you build your technique? Artistry doesn't happen until you've attained technical mastery, and for that, you need a solid system in place. Goals give you a direction to go in, but systems provide you with a way to make progress. As James Clear states in his book, quote, "You do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems." It's a really interesting thing to think about. In other words, if your practice ritual isn't building the necessary muscles you need to play that piano, and if you aren't working on technique but just playing tunes, you will not have the tools in your toolbox needed to finish the job, as in to reach your goal. It's the systems that you have in place that get you there. So focus on them. Here's a simple one to add to your arsenal of techniques to break a bad habit. It's called point and call. Point out and call out your bad habit if you're about to do it. Say out loud, I'm about to eat this big bag of potato chips, but I don't need it. I want it, but I don't need it. It will make me gain weight, it will provide me with only empty calories, and it will contribute to potentially terrible outcomes. Say that out loud and see if you still eat the entire bag. You might, but the more you say it, the better chance you have at not eating the chips at all, right? Hearing the words spoken out loud will make the negative outcomes more realistic. Be sure to constantly remind yourself of the consequences, because to break bad habits, awareness is key. These are just some of the proven techniques for breaking bad habits. There are so many more out there, and I encourage you to find what will work best for you. Just do a simple Google search, and you'll get plenty of ideas from that. Now, it's important in all of this, however, to recognize the possibility of something deeper going on with you. A habit, and particularly the craving and reward portion of the habit loop, is often an indication of an underlying motive that may not seem obvious on the surface. You may recall in my last podcast the example I gave of the habit loop with the donut. See the donut, crave the sugar, eat the donut, get the sugar high. Could actually be see the donut, crave defiance of being told you shouldn't eat things like that, eat the donut, and be rewarded with a feeling of defiance that you get to make your own decisions and nobody can tell you what to do. This is an area a coach or a therapist can help you with. Looking for deeper motives doesn't have to be scary. A proper professional can help. Remember that you are human. Give yourself some grace and don't hesitate to seek the clarity necessary for positive change. Regardless of how you choose to approach breaking bad habits, you will need grit and determination. It won't be easy. Your brain will not forget the habit, ever. So you're going to have to stand up to it. It can be done, but it will take some strength. Don't go it alone. Involve the people in your life and seek out professionals whose job it is to help you. You can break those habits, but you don't have to do it alone. Well, it's a short show today, but that's all for today. Next week, you're not going to have to listen to me yak the whole time because I'm going to welcome registered dietitian Heather Fiore as a special guest to talk about habits and our relationship with food. It promises to be a very enlightening conversation, so be sure to check it out. Heather's just terrific. Again, huge credit for these last 3 shows to James Clear's book, Atomic Habits, and Charles Duhigg's book, The Power of Habit. I used a lot of information from these books, and I really am grateful for all I learned from them. I studied a lot of things on the internet and other books about habits. I saw a lot of videos. I listened to podcasts, but I found those 2 books to be the most comprehensive. And there's a lot more in them than what I've discussed. So please, I can't recommend them enough. And to those authors, I don't know them, but I wish them well if by any chance they're listening. And I want to say thank you for the great information, the great work they've done. So that's it for today. If you've enjoyed this, please hit the subscribe or follow button so you'll be notified every time I publish a new show. For now, thanks so much for listening. Be well, and I'll catch you next time on the Barrier Busting Podcast.